anything that is capable of generating power or heat so that we can use it for some other purpose. So that is nothing but energy resources. Renewable energy resources means they can be renewed, they can be replenished. They will never get exhausted and it is lifelong, it is available for human use. Non-renewable resources are available in limited amounts and their availability cannot be increased very soon like that of the renewable resources. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to today's session on Environmental Studies for second semester B.C.A. I'm Dr. Divya, Environmental Studies faculty, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. So in today's session, let us continue with studying Unit 3, that is Natural Resources, Renewable and Non-Renewable Resources. So in this session, let us concentrate on, which is the last session of this particular unit, let us concentrate on the energy resources wherein it is divided into renewable and non-renewable resources. And instead of going in for non-renewable resources, what are the alternative resources that we can prefer and why is the use of alternative resources important? And also we shall look into the global energy demand and a case study on the global energy demand. So talking about energy resources, so what is energy resource? So the definition of energy resources, something that can produce heat, power, life, move objects or produce electricity. So anything that is capable of generating power or heat so that we can use it for some other purpose. So that is nothing but energy resources. So energy resources is actually of two types. It is primarily divided into two types. One is the renewable energy resources and the non-renewable energy resources. So renewable energy resources means they can be renewed, they can be replenished. They will never get exhausted and it is lifelong, it is available for human use. Whereas non-renewable energy resources, if human beings do not use it in an economical manner or in a controlled manner, very soon it might get depleted and we cannot replenish it back again. So that is non-renewable energy resources. So about these two energy resources, let us study in detail. So talking about renewable energy resource, the definition of renewable energy resource. So these are the energy resources which are produced from sources like sun and wind that are naturally replenished and do not deplete, meaning the sun and the wind will never deplete, right? They will never reduce. Of course, the radiations and the speed of the wind or the intensity of the wind might reduce, but they are there in the planet for lifelong. They will never get depleted. So therefore, the energy that is derived from the solar energy, that is the sun and the wind energy, it is nothing but they are the renewable energy sources which can be renewed and it will never get depleted. So talking about the characteristics of renewable energy resources. So renewable energy resources are able to increase their abundance through reproduction and utilization of simple substances. Say for example, plants are also renewable energy resources, right? So plants, I have taken the example of plants here wherein I have taken the example of plants in the form of crops and plants growing in the forest and also animals who are being replaced from time to time. So those organisms having the capability of renewing themselves or reproducing, they can be put under renewable resources also. Not just that, even sun is also one of the best examples. Sun renews itself, right? The energy never gets exhausted from the sun. So therefore, that is also a kind of renewable resources. But one of the characteristic feature of renewable resources here in this particular point is they are capable of increasing their abundance. They are capable of multiplying. They are capable of increasing their population by the most important feature of an organism, which is called as reproduction capability. So next important characteristic is they are able to be recycled. So renewable resources are those which can be recycled. Say for example, we'll consider wood and wood related products. or some wood related products such as the pulp products. Then we have the natural rubber, that is natural rubber is got from the latex of the rubber plant. So we have certain fibers that is used in making cloths, ropes and all that, like cotton, jute. Then we have animal wool, that sheep is one of the best example for animal wool. Then we have the silkworm, from which silk is derived, and we have the synthetic fibers and also leather that is got from the skin of or the hide of various animals, though they do not have a life cycle but can be recycled. These can be recycled, right? Wood, it can be recycled. Even the wood products that are there, they can be recycled. They can be renewed and used again to make something else. Leather can be recycled. A lot of natural products are there which is got from nature itself. They can be recycled. So those things which are got from nature that can be recycled, they can also be put under the renewable resources. So one of the important characteristics of renewable resources is their capability to reproduce, wherein they increase the number. The next characteristic is they have the ability to be recycled so that we can use it for some more time. Next is inexhaustible is also one of the characteristics. Say for example, solar energy is one of the best example that we can take for inexhaustible renewable energy resources. Inexhaustible means they will never get exhausted. They will never get over. Continuously they will get generated. So solar energy, although it is having a finite life, that is, it is immortal. It doesn't have a particular lifespan because it is immortal, is considered as a renewable resource because it contains a lot of energy that can be used continuously by human beings to generate electricity and therefore used for various other purposes. So that is how the three important characteristics of renewable resources is: one is they have the capability to increase their number. Next is they have the capability to be recycled, and they have the ability to be inexhaustible. That is, they never get exhausted. So these are the important characteristics. Next, talking about the types of renewable energy sources. So one is solar energy. Solar energy is got from the sun, right? So very easily the whole house can be lit by using just solar panels on your rooftop, right? So that is how solar, and why? Because solar energy is continuous. The sun will be there. Only thing is the amount of heat that we receive varies on the climate and the topography of that particular area and all that. But apart from that, sun is always there. It will never die. Of course, sun will die, but again it will take billions of years for sun to die because sun is also a star. So therefore, it will have a lifespan. But as of now, for this particular generation or for the next coming generations also, the sun will still be there and the energy generated by the sun will still be there. It will never get depleted. So therefore, sun is the best example, wherein solar energy is one of the best example for a renewable energy resource. Next is wind energy. So wind energy, you might have seen in hilly areas and all, or in open plains and all, usually the windmills will be kept, right? So these windmills will be used to generate electricity, making use of the energy from the wind. So therefore, because wind also tends to movement of air, we have studied in the previous session, airflow. Airflow also depends on the topography, and airflow also depends on the heating up of the earth, and also airflow depends on the spin of the earth. The intensity of the airflow might tend to vary, but air will always be there. It is, again, it will never get depleted, right? So therefore, wind energy is also one of the best renewable energy resource. Next, talking about hydro energy, that is water. So electricity produced from water, that is hydro energy, energy derived from water. So water also will never get exhausted. It will be there up till when? Until the plants are there. So we can't say that water can become exhausted. It might be, but not to certain years as of now. Maybe in the future, because of our human intervention, it might get exhausted. But as of now, water is a renewable resource. So therefore, the electricity can be generated from water through hydropower plants and all that. So therefore, water is also, or hydro energy is also one of the renewable energy resources. So next, talking about tidal energy. Tidal energy is nothing but got from the ocean waves. So ocean waves, when it moves, or the flow of the ocean waves or the intensity of the ocean waves also creates some sort of energy which can be used to generate some kind of power that can be used to run various equipments and all that. So therefore, tidal energy, the energy that is created by the ocean waves, because ocean, it is very vast and it will never get exhausted, and therefore the waves of the ocean can be used as a renewable energy resource. Next, talking about geothermal energy. So geothermal energy is got from the crust of earth. So in the earth's crust also, we all know that heat is generated, right? So using that particular heat that is generated from the earth's crust, the geothermal energy is produced, and the earth's crust, the earth will never deplete, the earth will never die, it will be there as such, right? So therefore, the earth's crust that is there, whatever energy will be generated out of it, that is generate power and all that, so that it can be used to run various equipment. So therefore, geothermal energy is also a non-exhaustible, or it is an inexhaustible energy resources. Therefore, it is placed under the renewable energy resources. Next is biomass energy. So biomass energy is nothing but, say for example, the energy that is derived from the dead and decaying organic matter. Until plants are there, we are capable of getting biomass energy. Say for example, you all might have heard of the gobar gas, right? Which is a biogas. So the biogas or the gobar gas, which are used in most of the villages where cattle are reared. So whatever the cow dung is got from the cattle, along it will be mixed with the waste plant material, and it will be put in a tank and allowed to ferment. So when it ferments, what happens? A gas will be generated. That gas or energy will be created. That gas or energy is used for lighting stoves. That is, instead of using LPG, they use this particular biogas for cooking purposes and all that. So that is nothing but biomass energy, which is got from nature itself. So therefore, not very soon the plants and all that will become extinct. It will completely become extinct, because eventually the plants die, the animals die. Therefore, it can be used to produce biomass energy. That is nothing but biomass energy, and because it can be replenished back again and again, they have put it under the renewable energy resources. So these are the different types or examples of renewable energy resources. One is solar energy, we have the wind energy, the hydro energy, the tidal energy, the geothermal energy, and the biomass energy. Next, talking about the non-renewable energy resource. So let us know the definition of non-renewable energy sources. So a non-renewable energy source or a non-renewable resource is a natural resource that cannot be readily replaced by natural means at a pace quick enough to keep up with the consumption. It means that if the human demand or human consumption of this particular non-renewable energy resource is continuous over a period of time, then very soon these resources can be depleted and we cannot get it back. The best example is petrol. To form petrol, it will take thousands to thousands of years for crude petrol to be formed. Now, if we do not use petrol in a controlled manner, and if we unnecessarily waste petrol, then very soon the petroleum resource will come to an end and we cannot get it back. We'll again have to wait for 1,000 to 10,000 years if we need to get the petroleum products back. So therefore, it is a non-renewable resource, right? Of course, it can be renewed, but they don't put it under renewable resource because there is a 1,000-year gap that we need to wait once the petroleum products comes to an end or it gets depleted. Those resources are nothing but non-renewable energy sources. So next, talking about the characteristics of non-renewable resources. So non-renewable resources are available in limited amounts and their availability cannot be increased very soon like that of the renewable resources. Some of the examples here are fossil fuels like petrol, coal, etc. As I told you, petroleum products, coal products and all, they can be depleted very soon if it is not cautiously used by the people. And we have nuclear energy sources such as the uranium, thorium, etc. Then some metals such as iron, copper, gold, silver, lead, zinc, etc. Can we manufacture gold? Not possible, right? Or can we manufacture any of these metals? Not possible. We need to depend on the natural source that is obtained on the earth's surface or on the earth's crust, wherein it is digged and it is polished, refined, and then these minerals are got. Now, if you don't use them economically, they will get depleted very soon. And again, for them, for the gold and all that to develop back, it will take thousands to millions of years. So that is why it is a non-renewable energy resource, and there are certain minerals and salts like some carbonates, phosphates, nitrates, etc. Of course, phosphates, nitrates and all, now it is available in the synthetic form. So it can be renewed, but naturally it is not possible to renew them in a faster rate. So that is why all these are put under the non-renewable resource. So one of the main characteristic of non-renewable resources, they are available in limited amounts and their availability cannot be increased like the renewable resources. Renewable resources availability can be increased because they have the capability of reproduction. So that is why, and they are inexhaustible and all that we have studied, but that is not the case with non-renewable resources. So once a non-renewable resource is consumed, it is gone forever. You cannot get it back, and then we'll have to find an alternate source for these non-renewable resources. So what are these alternate sources? Let's study in the coming slides here. So therefore, that is why once a non-renewable resources is completely depleted from this planet, we'll have to wait for thousands of years if it has to be brought back to the planet. So that is why non-renewable resources should always be used cautiously. Otherwise, we should prefer using renewable energy resources over non-renewable energy resources. Next, talking about the non-renewable energy resources, they are actually of two types. They are also recyclable resources and non-recyclable resources. So, talking about the recyclable resources. Recyclable resources means once a used product, you can again use it back. That is recyclable, right? So, these are non-renewable resources which can be collected after they are used and can be recycled. These are mainly non-energy mineral resources which occurs in the earth's crust. Say for example, aluminium, copper, mercury. Aluminium, copper, mercury and all we cannot manufacture on our own. We have to depend on nature where it is got from the earth's crust. But once we get it, say for example, copper. So copper is usually used in making those electricity wires and all that. A lot of electricity related products, they contain copper. Now, when we dump those electricity products, what people will do is, they'll actually collect those products, they'll remove the copper, they'll recycle it and use it somewhere else. So, they are non-renewable resources, but they're capable of recycling or being recycled. And deposits of fertilizer, nutrients, as I told you, phosphates and all that, right? These phosphates and potassium and some of the minerals that are used in the natural state like asbestos, clay, mica, etc. Mica is also got from the earth. You might have seen when we were young, we used to collect that small shiny kind of plate-like structures from the soil. And we didn't know then it was mica. So mica is also available in large quantity, but once it gets diminished, we cannot replenish it back, but it can be recycled and used again. So these are phosphates, potassium, various minerals that are there like nitrogen and all that can be recycled and it can be reused. So these are the recyclable, non-renewable energy resources, meaning once they are depleted, we cannot get them back, but already which are being used, that can again be recycled and reused. So next, talking about the non-recyclable resources. So these are the non-renewable resources which cannot be recycled in any way. How much ever we try, once used and left, it is gone forever. It cannot be recycled back. Say for example, these are the fossil fuels, nuclear energy like petrol, coal, then some of the nuclear energy that are there, all that cannot be recycled. So therefore, we need to use them very, very cautiously. Example, uranium here, which provides 90% of our energy requirement. So all these fossil fuels are the ones that provide 90% of our energy requirement, right? Petrol, to run vehicles, petrol is very, very important. Now, can we go back to the olden days where we can depend on walking? Not possible again. But we can take certain steps like carpooling or switching off the vehicle when we are in a halt in a traffic light. So all that, by doing such small things, we can save energy. You might think other people are not doing, why should I do it? You take a first step, right? Maybe somebody near you who has parked the vehicle or whose vehicle is halted in the red light, that is in the traffic signal, he might look at you and he might think, okay, it is good even if I switch off my vehicle. So maybe energy can get consumed. If you don't want to think of nature, at least think of the money that you're spending. If you save petrol, then you will also be spending less money for the petrol again, right? So that is how, by taking such smaller steps, we can reduce the depletion of the non-renewable energy resources. So next, talking about the types of non-renewable energy resources. We have oil, natural gas and coal, which comes under the fossil fuels. Oil, natural gas and coal and all that are used for burning purposes in order to generate heat. So say for example, oil also is used for burning purposes. Even to run vehicles also oil is needed. Natural gas is also used, that is for cooking purposes and all that. Then we have coal, that is also used for running certain vehicles, especially the trains and all that. To generate electricity also coal is used. And nuclear energy, separated, doesn't come under the fossil fuel. This is also a non-renewable energy resource. Next, talking about the use of alternate energy resources. I told you, instead of depending on non-renewable energy resources, what alternate energy resources we can use so that we can prevent the depletion of or the exhaustion of the non-renewable energy resources. So there are some alternate energy resources that can be used, such as the hydel energy, the wind energy, the geothermal energy, the ocean thermal energy, then the biomass energy, biofuel, solar energy. All these are renewable energy resources, right? So since these are renewable energy resources which will never get exhausted, why should we go to non-renewable energy resource? Again, here there is a problem. Can we replace petrol and diesel and use something else to run the vehicle? Of course, now electric vehicles and all that are available. But is the whole population in the world having electric vehicles? No, right? Only very few, maybe 10% or 20% of the population might be using electric vehicle. But what about the rest, wherein billions of people are on the roads, right? They are using the vehicles. So that time it is quite difficult, but maybe over the years, by switching over to renewable resources, we can prevent the depletion of the non-renewable resources. Say for example, we have Jatropha. So Jatropha is a plant which actually produces a green color fruit which contains a seed. That Jatropha seed is the one that is used to manufacture biofuel. And scientists have found out that that particular Jatropha biofuel can be used to run vehicles. But can we use the same engine that is used to run diesel or petrol vehicles? Not possible. The engine should be altered. Maybe the altering of the engine might become more expensive, which the common man cannot afford. Or we can go in for compressed natural gas, which is also one of the natural gases that are used instead of petrol and diesel. That is also a problem because the engine that is used is costly and the availability of compressed natural gas cannot meet the demands of the growing population, wherein lots of transportations are running on the roads. So all that drawbacks actually prevents people from completely depending on an alternate source of energy, such as a renewable source of energy. So that is why maybe in the coming years, maybe some new experiments might be conducted wherein economical vehicles might come out which completely depends on these renewable sources, so that the non-renewable resources can be completely avoided or it can be completely minimized. So that is how we can use the alternate energy sources. Next, talking about the benefits of using alternate energy sources, that is stopping the use of non-renewable energy resource and then using the renewable energy resource. So what are the benefits? Let's look into. So considered a reliable source of energy because technological development in recent years has allowed these clean energy resources to enter more and more into the global energy. Not just that, the renewable energy resources are clean. The energy that is got from the sun, from the ocean waves will not contain any harmful chemicals or toxic substances. Therefore, no pollution to the environment. Therefore, no hazards to the human beings, plants and animals living in that particular environment. It is a clean product, right? And therefore, no such adverse diseases and all in human beings. So, therefore, people try to prefer clean energy resources when compared to the energy resources which give certain toxins as their byproducts. So here, therefore, alternate energy resources is one of the best reliable source of energy resources because of its clean output. So that is why people can prefer these more. And it is good for the environment. Why it is good for the environment? Because it produces very low emissions or zero emission at all. That is true, right? Electric vehicle, does it release smoke? No, zero emissions. But when talking about the use of petrol and diesel vehicles, especially diesel vehicles, how much amount of smoke it releases, right? So that is why this alternate energy sources, that is the renewable energy sources, are good for the environment because they produce minimal amount of emissions or they produce zero emissions, no emissions at all. And lower dependency on fuel wood and other household fuel sources reduces the drudgery of women by eliminating the distances they travel for fuel collection. So you might have seen in villages people walking miles together in order to fetch firewood. But here, if we stop the use of these firewoods and give them the alternate source of energy such as the LPG or the biofuels or the biogas, then these people, these women, they can avoid walking long distances going there for fetching the firewood. Therefore, the safety of the women can also be put on the top list. So that is why lower dependency on fuel wood and also other household fuel can also be reduced if we use alternate energy sources. So these are the different benefits of alternate energy sources. And not just that, they also reduce or eliminate health problems associated with using cooking stoves, including respiratory diseases and eye problems. So, when we are using firewood, what happens? A lot of smoke is generated. So, that smoke will enter into the respiratory system, into the eyes, and over a prolonged period of time, it will cause a lot of ill effects on the human being. So, all that can also be avoided by switching over to the renewable energy resource instead of preferring the non-renewable energy resource. And not just that, these alternate energy resources can also provide employment opportunities. Why? Because, say for example, we have a hydel power station, power plant, we have a, that is hydropower plant, we have a geothermal power plant. So when such power plants are set up, all these are renewable energy resources, right? So when such power plants are set up in that particular area, it will generate job to the people there, to the youngsters there, and therefore it will also improve the economy of the people of that particular area. So therefore it provides local that is employment opportunities to the people as well. And also because of this, lot of small scale agricultural industries will come up, can be used for construction, repair, maintenance of energy devices. So whatever work is there in that particular power plant, that can be taken up by different sectors of people, therefore providing lot of employment also to the people. So these are the benefits of alternate energy resources. Next, talking about the drawbacks of alternate energy resources. Of course, renewable energy resources as a drawback, because I told you people are accustomed or used to depending on petrol and diesel vehicles itself, and because of the cost, of course, for electric vehicles government provide subsidies, that is there, but everywhere there is no electricity station set up to charge the vehicle, right? Unlike the petroleum or the diesel stations that are there. So that is also one of the drawbacks. So there are a lot of different drawbacks in using the alternate energy resources. What are those? Let's look into. So the initial cost of establishment of alternate energy resources is costlier when compared to the conventional energy resources. So that is one of the problem. The cost is one of the major problem here. And maintenance of these structures is very, very difficult. Be it a geothermal power plant or a nuclear power plant or a hydroelectric power plant, whatever it is, maintaining that power plant is not that easy when compared to maintaining the petroleum or diesel plants, right? So that is why, because petrol and diesel, you can just tanker, you can just distribute it to different bunks, and there they will store it in their own tanks which is created underground. They'll just store it there and it can be used easily. But that is not how it goes with these renewable energy resources or the alternate energy resources. It's very difficult to maintain these structures. So that is also one of the drawback. And one more thing is, it requires more space. You need to create a hydroelectric power plant, a nuclear power plant, because the best example is nuclear power plant, where you have built a nuclear power plant surrounding hundreds of kilometers. You cannot have people inhabiting there. It is not safe. So therefore, it consumes a lot of space. So that is also one of the drawback. And the energy supply is also unpredictable during natural calamities. Say for example, I'll talk about the solar energy. During rainy season, we cannot completely depend on the solar energy, right? Because it is cloudy. Therefore, enough amount of solar energy cannot be got. Therefore, electricity cannot be given to that particular household during the rainy season or during the cloudy weather time. So therefore, here, because during natural calamities also we cannot, of course during natural calamities petrol and diesel can be provided, but electricity, all that cannot be provided continuously. So that is why energy supply is also unpredictable during natural calamities. So these are the 4 drawbacks that are there. So one is, it is very costly for the establishment of, that is, alternate energy resources. One is the maintenance of the structure is very, very difficult. The other one is it requires more space, and other one is it is not continuous. The supply is not continuous during natural calamities and all that. So these are the drawbacks. So next, let's talk about the growing energy needs. So the global demand for energy is increasing rapidly, right? As the population increases, the demand for energy tends to increase because of the population as well as the economic growth, especially in emerging market economies. So as the flow of money to the people also increases, the use of energy also tends to increase. How? If the money flow is less, then instead of using, depending entirely on electricity, we'll start using candles or we'll start using kerosene lamps and all that as a source of energy to brighten the household, right? But if the flow of energy to a family is very good, then they'll start depending on the electricity and all that. So therefore, everything, especially the growing population and the good flow of money, actually increases, or the economic growth increases the demand for the energy resources as well. And energy security concerns can emerge as more consumers require more energy resources. Next, higher consumption of fossil fuels, it will lead to higher greenhouse gas emissions, particularly the best known greenhouse gas that is there, the carbon dioxide, which will contribute to global warming. So the growing demand for energy also causes problems to the ecosystem, because more the energy is used, more amount of greenhouse gases is emitted, that is carbon dioxide is emitted, which increases the temperature of the earth, and increase in the temperature of the earth will warm the earth to an extent that it will start melting the glaciers and the ice caps and all that, and bringing about a lot of natural calamities and various other environmental issues. This is about the growing energy needs. So one of the main reasons for the growing energy needs is, or the increase in the needs for energy is, one is the increase in the population or the population growth rate, and also because of the growth in the economy, or because of the proper flow of the economy. So talking about the world energy consumption. So the world energy consumption continues to rise as and when the population is one of the main culprit here actually. So more the increase in population, more the demand for energy. Therefore, it continues to rise, especially in the developing countries, because developing countries will have a lot of industries, a lot of well-developed transportation facilities, which requires a lot of energy consumption. So therefore, the developing countries, the demand for global energy is quite high. So global demand for energy has tripled in the past 50 years, and it might triple again in the next 30 years. So that is what the scientists have predicted. So since the last 50 years, it has tripled. The energy demand has tripled. It has increased threefold, and maybe in the next 30 years, again it might increase even more, or it might triple or increase threefold. So much of this growth from the rapidly booming economies of China and India, many of the developed countries, especially those in Europe, are hoping to meet their energy needs by expanding the use of renewable sources. So that is why, as and when the population increases, as and when the demand for non-renewable energy resources increases, the depletion of the non-renewable energy resources just goes in a faster rate, right? They are the developing countries, but they are good in economy, such as China and India, and also some of the developed countries such as Europe. They are preferring to use alternate energy resources, that is renewable energy resources over non-renewable energy resources, in order to meet the demands of the people. So in India, the main energy resource are biomass, such as wood and dung, and also coal. Most of our trains even now run with coal, right? So coal is one of the important energy resource that is being used, and also the wood and dung are one of the important energy, because though we are a developing country, still there are many villages which are still dependent on coal, dung and wood as their source of energy even today. So that is why in India, a lot of non-renewable energy resources are still being used today, and half of India's oil is imported. This is also one of the problem. So as the demand increases, why are the oil prices hiking now? Of course, it is because of some of the wars that is going on and all that, and also because of the depletion of the this particular fossil fuel. And oil is not produced in India. Oil, of course, it is produced in India. That is, we have the Indian oil and all that, but still that oil that is produced is not sufficient to meet the demands of the people. Therefore, half of India's oil, 50% of the oil, is still imported from other countries itself. So this is how the demand for energy is continuously increasing. So about 70% of India's electricity is generated by highly polluting coal. Yet, there are sizable strides being made in renewable energy. So, most of the energy is generated from coal. Of course, we have the hydel energy and all that is generated, but that is most of the India's electricity is still being generated from coal itself. That is about 70% of the electricity. And coal is one of the non-renewable energy resource. How long can we depend on coal? So, that is why it is always best to completely depend on the renewable energy resource as much as possible. So India is rapidly growing wind energy base. So India, it is that is, we are in the tropics, and the tropics receives enough amount of wind, because the heat received in the tropics is also more when compared to that is equator receives more, but the tropical region receives less of the heat but enough for the proper wind flow or air flow and all that. So therefore India is rapidly growing wind energy base, and it has the largest solar cooking program in the world. So these are the renewable resources which we have shifted to instead of depending on the non-renewable resources such as the wind energy resources and the solar energy resources for cooking and for electricity. And India has the 5th largest electricity generating capacity, and it is the 6th largest energy consumer, amounting for around 3.4% of the global energy consumption. We are the ones who consume more amount of energy when compared to other countries, especially because of the developing infrastructure as well as the growing population. And India's energy demand, because of this particular reason, has grown at 3.6% per annum over the past 30 years. So since past 30 years, every year there has been a 3.6% increase in the energy demand, especially in India. So this is about the growing energy demand. That is, earlier how much demand was there for energy. Now because of the increasing population, how much demand has increased, all that we have studied here. Next, there is a graph that is given here wherein you can see they have given the year, that is from 1990 to 2035. Of course, we are in 2022 now, but they have predicted in 2025, 30 and 35 what might happen. So they have given here the amount of energy, that is something into 10 to the power 18 joules. So joules is the unit of energy. It is used to measure the energy. So it is into, why they have given here into means 0 into 10 to the power 18 joules, 200 into 10 to the power 18 joules, 400 into 10 to the power 18 joules. So that is what it is meant there. That is into 10 to the power 18 joules. So here in 1990, the global energy demand was somewhere around 373. It was 373 into 10 to the power 18 joules. And in 2000, it has increased to 428 into 10 to the power 18 joules. In 2008, 532 into 10 to the power 18. In 2015, it is 605. In 2020, 654. 2025, they are saying that it will be 708. And 2030, it will be 761. And 2035, it will be 812 into 10 to the power 18 joules. So, see from where it started in 1990s, the energy demand was just 373 into 10 to the power 18 joule. But in 2020, somewhere 2022 also, it is 654 into 10 to the power 18 joule. And it is doubling. By the time we reach 2035, it will double to 812. Right, 812 into 10 to the power 18 joules. So this is how fast the global energy demand is increasing. Again, why? Because of the growing population. So this is about the world energy consumption, wherein a statistical representation or a graphical representation has been given. So next, let's talk about the case studies on growing energy demand. So how much energy demand is there? So I told you there are many villages in India which are still depending on, that is, the coal, the wood and all that as a source of their energy, right? So here they have taken, that is a scientist, he has taken the case study of electrical energy demand in rural India, that is a case study of Arunachal Pradesh. So this case study was not just done in Arunachal Pradesh, but it was also done in Uttar Pradesh as well. So here what they did was they chose 73 households. So 73 houses were chosen both in Arunachal Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh, and they were surveyed in order to study the energy need, that how much demand is there for energy in that rural community. And we know that Arunachal Pradesh is a hilly region, right? It has a lot of terrains and all that. And the data which they collected from those 73 houses, that each house, how much energy they are demanding, how much energy they are using, Are they satisfied with the amount of energy consumption, or do they need more amount of energy to run their equipments and all that? So that is what survey they had done. So the data that they collected, they show that there were many unelectrified households. Means there were many houses to whom electricity was not provided, but in spite of them not having electricity, they were already using some electrical appliances. How are they using these electrical appliances? See how much demand for electrical appliances is there, right? How people can never stop using electrical appliances because it has become a part of their life. So even though electricity is not there for many of the houses, but still they were using electrical appliances, wherein they generated the electricity by using photovoltaic panels and batteries. By using batteries, they generated electricity, and they were running these electrical appliances by using photovoltaic panels or batteries. And in Uttar Pradesh, small scale microgrids are already providing homes with enough power. So there are small scale energy generating units in Uttar Pradesh. They are already providing many homes with enough of electricity, which is sufficient for lighting as well as for charging the mobile. But still, people are not satisfied because they need to use even more better equipments or electrical appliances, maybe to run a TV, to run a washing machine, to run a refrigerator and all that. They are not satisfied, and the demand for energy is increasing, where an average unelectrified household was found to consume 2.48 kilowatt of monthly electricity. And they were even happier if the consumption was more. They were ready to pay extra. Only thing was they needed electricity from the government. They didn't want to depend on batteries or that is photovoltaic cells or batteries anymore, because these photovoltaic cells and panels and batteries were not capable of running heavy equipment. So that was the reason. So they were ready to spend extra 155 on energy services. And still they wished for the use of more appliances and more power and have the required finances to pay for it. They have finances with them, but because of the terrain and all that is there in Arunachal Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh, it was not possible for the government to create big electricity plants so that high amounts of electricity can be provided to the people. But still, people who were once depending on the batteries and photovoltaic panels and all that to run small appliances, now they have started demanding for more energy because they wanted to improve their lifestyle, wherein they wanted to use some larger extra equipments and all that. So due to its few inhabitants, mountainous terrains, the extension of the national grid to Arunachal Pradesh is quite difficult and it is expensive. It is not that the government cannot provide. The government is ready to provide electricity on a larger scale for them. But the small grids that they have created to generate electricity or to provide electricity was not sufficient according to the people's demand for electricity or for the energy. But the government was not, though very less population is there, still government was not possible to give them enough amount of energy. The main reason was because of it, this particular Arunachal Pradesh is quite a mountainous region with lots of mountain and lots of that is mountainous terrain, and therefore they were not able to construct bigger electricity grids, and thus these villagers were largely neglected. See how much demand is there, right? People are demanding for electricity. They need electricity. They don't want to still depend, like how in previous days they used to depend on the batteries and photovoltaic cells. They no more want to depend on them. They want enough amount of energy to run higher end household equipments. So though the demand is there, it is not possible for the government to provide for their demands. So this was about a case study that was done for energy demands in a few of the villages in Arunachal Pradesh and in Uttar Pradesh. So this was about the case study. So the full complete research article, I've just put the reference here. You can just open and type the same reference in Google, and you can just open this paper and read the paper continuously, because even more information is available. I've just put a small abstract of this in this particular slide. So I want you to tell me, other than using this particular, of course they were using battery and photovoltaic cells to run small equipments. So what else can they depend on? Arunachal Pradesh doesn't get enough amount of sunlight, so they can't think of solar energy. That is not possible to use solar energy continuously. Maybe when the temperatures are high, they can depend on the solar energy, but not continuously. But instead of this, instead of depending on the government to run heavy equipments or heavy household electricity equipments, what alternate source of energy can they use? So if you have any idea, just type it in the comment box, leave it in the comment. So I'll just look into it. So because case studies is always for you to run your brains, wherein you have to think as being young citizens of the country, what you can do, what you might think can be done to provide or to meet the energy demands of the people of this particular or these villages in Uttar Pradesh and Arunachal Pradesh. So please leave your comments regarding this case study. So what alternate sources can be used instead of just depending on the government and forcing the government to provide high amounts of electricity when it is not possible in such a region where high mountain terrains are there. So just leave your comments there. So this was about this particular session wherein we studied about the renewable and non-renewable energy resources and how we can use the alternate energy resources instead of depending on the non-renewable energy resource. And also we learnt about the global energy demand, and also we learnt about the energy demand by taking a case study in few of the very small villages in Uttar Pradesh and Arunachal Pradesh. So this was about this particular session. So with this session, this unit comes to an end. So we shall meet again in the coming sessions with a new unit. Thank you.